Ashley Benefield, a former model and ballerina, finding herself at the center of a high-profile trial after being accused of shooting and killing her husband, Douglas Benefield. Claiming self-defense, Ashley's case sheds light on the complexities of domestic violence and the legal challenges that arise when trying to prove justifiable force. All this weekend on the Hidden Killers podcast, we're examining the case of Ashley Benefield, examining the events leading up to that fateful day in their Lakewood Ranch, Florida home, and the allegations of abuse Ashley made against Douglas. We're taking you to the courtroom for raw audio from the Stand Your Ground hearing of Ashley Benefield all weekend here on the Hidden Killers podcast. And welcome to the podcast. All this weekend, as you know, we're going to be featuring this story, and context, as you know, with anything is key. We're going to start out this series this weekend by listening back to some testimony from Ashley Benefield. This is from back in 2018 during a hearing with a judge where Ashley was talking about allegations of abuse against her then husband, Doug Benefield. Let's take a listen.
So the first time there was domestic violence between you and Douglas Benefield was when?
Well, the first time that he punched the wall wasn't April, but he started
April of
2017.
So in April of 2017, he punched the wall during the course of an argument or discussion, or what preceded the punching the wall?
He had sent me text messages with the kissing emoji, which I did not respond to, but I had responded to the rest of the conversation, and he became offended that I hadn't responded in a loving manner to his emoji text message. And so he came home from work early, and I was in the bedroom, and he came in, and he immediately became very angry and started accusing me of not loving him, and said that if I had loved him, that I would have responded with a kissing emoji or a heart back, and that he started accusing me of possibly having a relationship with somebody else. Said this just proved that he loved me more than I loved him. I, of course, told him that, none of that was true, but he became more and more angry, and he, at one point, he had turned to walk away from me, and he was standing in the opening of the closet, and I was standing right on the outside of the closet, and he turned around and he punched a hole through the wall with his fist, and I was standing on the other side of the wall, and the drywall literally came out and hit me in the face.
So how did a gun get involved in this discussion the two of you were having?
I don't remember what exactly triggered that point, but he was sitting at the dining room table, and I believe I was standing to his left, and he pulled the gun out. I believe it was in his boot, and he pulled it out, and he started waving it around. It was unholstered at the time, and
And you're in front of him?
I was to the side of him.
Okay. So he's waving the gun around in your direction, or?
All over, because he was yelling as he was doing it. He was using his hands and holding it, and I started screaming, and I said, "What are you doing? You got to put that down. You're scaring me." And so he actually pulled the trigger, but I do not believe there was a round in the chamber.
Hold on a second. When he pulled the trigger, where was the gun pointed?
He pointed it at the ceiling.
Okay.
And it did not discharge. So he then threw the gun facing me. It missed me. It hit the wall behind me, and it punched a large hole, which is the third picture.
The third page of the photograph?
Yeah, it's patched, but that was the hole that had been left in the wall from when he threw the gun. And I, at that point, was crying and very upset, and I told him he was scaring me. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but somehow, I guess he stood up and he went around to the other side. I believe he grabbed the gun. I don't know if it was out of the wall or how it got in his hand again. But he then, at that point, I had tried to leave. I was headed towards the laundry room because I was afraid, and he started screaming, and he told me that, this is a quote, that he was going to blow his brains out. And so I stopped and I dropped to the floor and I started crying and I begged him to not shoot the gun. And he said that I was going to have to watch him shoot his brains out. And I was screaming and asking him not to. I told him I wouldn't leave. I was literally on my hands and knees. And he, I guess at some point, discharged the gun. I didn't see him aim it at the ceiling, but the bullet went into the ceiling.
And then what happened?
I screamed, and you could smell like the smoke in the house.
Anybody call law enforcement?
No.
Did you go on to have a party within days?
I believe it was about a week later. We had been planning, since we'd gotten married, to have a celebration of marriage party, and all of my relatives from California had already bought their tickets and everyone was coming.
Why did you proceed to have that party after this event?
Because I was afraid and ashamed and I didn't want anyone to know it was happening.
You start to live full time in South Carolina when?
I would say in December of 2016.
All right. And you're in fine health other than your hamstring recovery in December of 2016?
Correct, yeah.
And did your health take a downturn?
It did.
When did it start having a downturn?
I would say by January I had started having weird symptoms. The first and most noticeable was just extreme fatigue.
Okay. And did the extreme fatigue persist during the entire time from January of 2017 to the time that you stopped living with Douglas Benefield?
It sometimes was worse than others, but yes, it was pretty consistent from that time.
And the day that you fixed that you moved out from his home was when?
August 26th, 2017.
Of 2017? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And in the course of living with Douglas Benefield, would he serve you food or anything that you would ingest into your body?
He would. We both enjoyed hot tea frequently. So he had begun a habit of bringing me breakfast in bed. He would also, multiple times during the day and a lot of times in the evening when we would go to bed, he would make me a mug of hot tea to go to bed with as well.
Okay. Was there ever anything about the tea that he would serve you that caused you concern?
Yes, on multiple occasions I told him that it didn't taste right. It was a lot of times very sweet to the point where I was so nauseous. I had gently tried to ask him to not make it so sweet because I like honey in my tea, and so he would put honey in my tea. And he multiple times got very upset and offended. If I didn't finish the tea that he brought me, he would get upset. One time I told him that I didn't feel well and I didn't want to drink it, and he started yelling at me, and he called me an ungrateful and said that I was lucky that I had a husband who would make me hot tea, and that it proved that he loved me, and that if I loved him, that I would have just been thankful.
There is more to come in the Ashley Benefield Stand Your Ground hearing. We're bringing it to you all weekend long here on the Hidden Killers podcast. Press subscribe so you don't miss a minute of courtroom coverage. I'm Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.